Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Gratitude versus Toxicity, How Recognition Counteracts Negative Behaviors. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Kayla, and I will be your host. And as always, I want to go ahead and give you a quick rundown of the webinar tools before you on your screen. If you have any questions, go ahead and pop those into the Q&A. Don't be shy. We will be actively monitoring the box and we'll do our best to address as many as possible throughout the session. Do you want to connect with fellow attendees? Go ahead and head on over to that attendee chat. It looks like you're already doing that. I love seeing it. We appreciate you. It's already happening. All right, looking for extra resources and check out the resource list. You'll find a couple helpful links related to the session today, as well as downloadable presentation slides, just in case you'd like to follow along. Now, this session is eligible for HRCI and SHRM credit, so you will be able to download your certificate towards the end of the webinar. All right, a quick tech tip: if you do experience any hiccups like a frozen screen or audio issues, your first step should be to refresh your browser. But hey, if that doesn't do the trick, let us know in the Q&A box and our team will be ready to assist you. Now, this session will be recorded, so don't fret if you miss anything. You will get an email with a link to the recording after the session. All right, so let's go ahead and get this party started. And I'd like to introduce our speaker for the hour, and we have Catherine Mattice. And Catherine is the founder of Civility Partners, and she is a strategic HR consultant and influencer who assists organizations in building positive cultures through HR practices. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to Catherine.
Thank you, Kayla. A little known secret, Kayla and I solve the world's problems before the webinars. Every time. Always love our chats, Kayla. So thanks everyone for being here. I do love interacting with the chat. Looks like some of you have been here before, so you know that. Please do talk to me in the chat and I will absolutely respond and try to incorporate things you're saying. Also share with each other, ask questions. You can do the Q&A box if you'd rather it be more anonymous, and let's go. So I've written a book, Navigating a Toxic Workplace for Dummies. I've had the pleasure of being cited in a lot of really cool places over the years. Civility Partners, my organization, has served a huge array of clients over the years as well. We figured out we've served almost 300 clients. So Jenny, my team member who's here, she'll have to sound the bell when we hit exactly 300. But we've been in a lot of industries, so we've seen a lot over the years. And I appreciate you being here. I am really focused on building positive, thriving work environments. That is what Civility Partners does. Just a little background on that. Civility Partners conducts workforce surveys with our clients. We create action plans with the client using that data. So if you've ever done a survey and you're not really sure what to do with the data once you have it, we can help with that. We also do lots of training, of course, and we specialize in coaching leaders accused of creating toxic work environments or hostile work environment. So we're going to talk about gratitude today and recognition, and we'll pull a little from the world of positive psychology, where there is tons of research around what drives happiness and what drives our job satisfaction and our life satisfaction. And certainly being grateful is one of those things. We already have a question. How do you navigate a workplace that doesn't see the vision as HR as a strategic partner? That's a great question right out of the gate, and I would say you don't. HR does need to be seen as strategic, and there is a ton of information in my book about how to get yourself to that point as an HR partner. We've done a webinar here with Kayla and Paychex a few times on that topic as well, so definitely check out some of those resources. Okay, so first question. Think of a time you did something great at work and no one noticed. How did it affect your motivation? Let's dig into what it feels like to not get some gratitude when you've done something.
It feels terrible.
Yes, it does.
That's my perspective. It feels awful. Maybe that I am not as important as maybe I thought. So that's my sense. What do you all think in the attendee chat?
Thanks for adding that. Yeah, I remember working one of my very first jobs. I worked in a law firm, and the attorney I worked for never ever gave feedback, good or bad. And I remember one time just going in his office and sitting down and kind of like, "Am I doing okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, you're fine. If you weren't, I'd let you know." And it's like, "Well, could you say so once in a while?"
Right.
All right, so others are with you. Why try? It's defeating. It feels horrible. Feel like you're not adding value. And it's interesting. Several of you have said you feel like you're not adding value. And that's an interesting statement because humans are social creatures, which means that we require as an instinctual need to feel like we bring value. That is what being a social creature means, is that we're all leaning on each other. And so feeling valued is, of course, Maslow's hierarchy of needs as well. You know, you see that in there, that we require feeling like people care about us and see us as bringing value to their lives. Only negatives are discussed. Yeah, my 20-year work anniversary and it wasn't acknowledged. When someone else gets credit for it, that's even worse. Okay, let's flip it. What about a time that someone genuinely offered you a thank you? How did that feel? Let's flip the where we're at. I do what's expected of me even if they don't recognize the full value, but getting an atta girl is always appreciated, for sure. All right, so think of the other side. What does it feel like when someone says thank you? It's nice, it's appreciated, it's encouraging, makes your job worth it. Okay, feels like I matter. Can turn a bad day around. Yeah. Reagan says, lovely, love that word. You feel seen, reminds you of why you do it. Felt noticed. Felt confused. I was so used to never getting acknowledgement. It was weird. That stinks. Okay, so the reason we did these two questions is to really highlight that it is very discouraging when we do something and don't get acknowledged or don't get a thank you. And on the flip side, it actually has quite a bit to do with our life satisfaction when we feel appreciated, and those small moments of thank yous or atta girls really do make a big difference in your day. So, of course, a toxic workplace culture is one where negativity is the domination, that's the narrative. So that's things like gossip, disengagement, microaggressions. And so the negativity really takes over the conversation, making it even more hard to feel acknowledged, or for somebody who wants to acknowledge you to even recognize that they should. So we start kind of going down this spiral. Happens in relationships too, where it can start to go down a negative spiral and it just kind of keeps going that direction. And somebody, that's you all, because you're on this webinar, has to consciously make an effort to turn it around and focus on the positives and focus on kind of unspinning that spiral. So one of my points of view here is that for a long time, we've really looked at harassment, and then everything else was sort of in its own category. And over time, we've seen that paradigm shift. We think more about employee experience now, employee engagement, DEI. So we've continued to move away from this sort of harassment or not scenario, but we still have a long way to go. There's a lot of behaviors at work that are toxic that we're not necessarily paying attention to, but we should. Everything on your screen, none of that is in your corporate policy handbook, I'm sure, as something maybe bullying is, but most of the things here aren't necessarily in your corporate policy handbook, right? So we really have to think beyond unlawful versus lawful. We really have to think about all of these behaviors that can be insidious, like gossip or some yelling or some ugly criticism that's hurtful, that those behaviors are also toxic and harmful, even though they're not unlawful. So 79% of employees who quit cite lack of appreciation as a key reason for leaving. And teams with high recognition frequency have 31% lower turnover and 12% higher engagement. And so we do need to make sure we're focused on gratitude. And this is not about some big total rewards package. That's not what we're talking about. We're just talking about relationships today and acknowledging the people around us. And of course, finding ways for the organization to step in and acknowledge its workforce as well. But I'm not here today to give you some big lofty goal of some big giant reward system that you should be using to acknowledge the people around you. Gratitude is actually fairly simple, right? So I love a little bit of neuroscience here. So we do need gratitude and to feel value because it helps regulate our pleasure, our reward, our motivation. Dopamine is important for those things. And when your brain releases dopamine, it gives this feel-good sensation, right? And then you start to desire that feel-good sensation even more. So individuals who regularly express gratitude have increased dopamine. So it's not just about receiving gratitude, it's about expressing gratitude. That will increase your dopamine, increase your happiness and pleasure. Gratitude is also linked to serotonin. So, serotonin is around happiness and feeling sort of calm. Again, it's not just about giving or not just about receiving gratitude. It's about giving gratitude when we reflect on positive things that have happened around us. That increases your serotonin. So it's not just about getting, it's about giving. And then of course, oxytocin is the love hormone. It's about trust, empathy, bonding. And again, giving gratitude and receiving gratitude both increase your oxytocin. So there's a whole lot of good things that come out of giving and receiving gratitude. Another interesting study that a client actually sent this study to us, and so we thought we'd incorporate it here, that in this research, the researchers asked their participants to describe where they were feeling different emotions. And, if you've ever had a broken heart, we say broken heart because it can actually physically feel like you hurt right here, even though we're talking about an emotion. And so this to be true, that we do feel emotions in our physical body. And so there is this mind-body connection as well. If you've ever been really angry at somebody, you can feel it. Your blood pressure is rising, your fingers can almost tingle. And so one way to look at creating a positive and thriving work environment and a respectful work environment where we are valuing each other is to tie this to your well-being initiatives. And so if you're getting pushback from your leader around culture or respectful work environments or making sure that everybody's held accountable to being respectful, if you're getting pushback on that, you can maybe circle back around and tie it to your wellness initiatives, which I think most organizations are still doing that, still doing well-being, even if we're not doing employee experience. So your organization's culture exists in 3 synergistic or conflicting forces. So this is what we call our oil model. It looks like my little black fuzzy employee is here. I apologize. I'm at home today. Here you go. So the oil model is about organizational behavior, which is how your organization behaves, right? Your processes, your systems, your technologies. And then individuals behave a certain way and your leadership team behaves a certain way. And the more aligned these 3 things are, the stronger your culture. The less aligned they are, the more toxic your culture. So just to give you an example, if in the case of gratitude, Your organization's behavior in the world of gratitude might include things like a system or process for acknowledging peers, some sort of peer reward system, your performance management system. The cat wants to hear the presentation. That's right. Your performance management system probably has room in there for making sure people are saying thank you, and managers are acknowledging what employees are doing well. So those are some organizational behavior components of a culture of gratitude. The problem is that we often see organizations have some systems like that, but they're not requiring individuals to behave in ways that match that system. Or the organization is asking individuals to behave a certain way, but not behaving it in that way itself. So you could be saying to your employees, we all should be more grateful. Let's try to have better one-on-ones. Let's have more gratitude and feel valued and all these things. But if the organization's systems don't translate into that or don't facilitate that type of behavior, then it's not going to work. So we'll revisit this model in a bit. You'll see it a few more times. So just thinking about that organizational behavior. This is my team, a couple members of my team. That's me as the pirate. And if you use Google Teams, it has this like filter. I'm sure Zoom has it too, but it has these filters where we sometimes mess around just to be silly. And I want to share a process that we have at Civility Partners. Is a really great idea, and I hope you'll take it and do it with your teams or your whole organizations. So we have something called an impact lunch. And it started a couple years ago because my team pointed out to me that, as the business owner, they felt a little too focused on the finances and like setting these organizational goals and like growing the business. And so they were telling me, Catherine, we feel like you've lost a little bit of your why. You've gotten a little more focused on like building the business and less focused on why we do this, which is creating better work environments. And so one way to bring that back, and this was Rebecca's idea, the one with the mustache there in the picture, she said, well, what if we do this impact lunch? And so once a month, the team can get together and we can talk about the ways in which we've impacted clients. And it can be anything from, we did this big survey and had some big giant impact, all the way to, I had a call with somebody yesterday and, they really appreciated the advice that I gave, or anything in between. And what was fascinating about this impact lunch is it quickly evolved away from clients and into impacting each other. And so this impact lunch has turned more into kind of like a love fest where we're saying things like, hey, Jenny, who's here on my chat, she's here to provide any resources that I might throw out there. And so we get to say things like, Jenny, I really appreciate that you're on the chats when I'm giving a webinar, because then I can focus on the content and it really helps me make sure that everybody on the webinar gets what they need. And so that's a suggestion for you. It's a great month to do that, given that it's Thanksgiving here in the States. So I definitely would give this a try. So have an impact lunch, get together, have some fun, and talk about the ways in which you impact each other. So, another thing to be thinking about is how do you build gratitude into the organization system? So the organization itself has to behave in ways that inspire gratitude and facilitate people's ability to be grateful. So some examples, building gratitude into performance reviews and one-on-ones. So your reviews probably already have some place for managers to write what's going well. Couple other thoughts. Do employees have a chance to write in what their manager is doing well and what they need from their manager to help them continue to grow? Is there any sort of thank you corner like the impact lunch? Is there a blog where an internal blog where people, or a Slack, where people can comment and say thank you to each other? Do leaders send handwritten notes? I used to say this a lot. I'm going to throw out this oldie but goodie idea. If you're on site, you could even just put some butcher paper on the wall and people could stop and write with a marker something that they appreciate in each other. So put butcher paper down the hallway, attach some markers to it, and let people say thank you to each other. Super easy, doesn't cost anything other than the cost of the butcher paper. The other thing is when you're doing, town halls or any sort of meetings, are people being acknowledged? Are departments being acknowledged? Beyond, the CEO saying, hey, thanks for doing this one thing, customer service team, like real actual get in there and giving some detailed thank yous. Another idea here is we had a client who came up with this. This wasn't my idea. They created something called work stories, where instead of having a meeting where kind of each person goes around the room and updates on what they're doing, or kind of giving the standard PowerPoint of here's where we're at, instead of doing that, they had work stories. So each month a department got to get up in front of the rest of the organization and share a story about what they're working on. Again, not here's the quotas we've met. It was, here is a problem that was before us in our department, given what we do. And here's what we've been working on to solve that problem. And here's where we're at. And here's what we expect to have happen. Here's been the outcome so far. And so it really gave everybody an opportunity to understand what the other departments were doing beyond the tasks. It gives people the chance to get to know their coworkers and get to understand what their coworkers do and what value they bring to the organization through narratives versus a PowerPoint slide about meeting goals. You could also do something called a gratitude round. Start off each and every meeting with let's all say thank you for something to somebody else in the room. So there's just so many ways to infiltrate gratitude into your organization and into your team. Definitely making sure that you're recognizing maybe some of the quiet contributors as well. I try to give Jenny a shout out whenever I can. Jenny is a quiet contributor in that you probably wouldn't know that she even works for Civility Partners if I didn't call that out as often as I can. So she deserves a lot of credit for what Civility Partners has accomplished. And I want to make sure people are aware that it's her that's bringing that. So I'm curious for you to answer this question. And while you do that, I'm going to look at some of the questions I've seen in the chat there. What are some places you can stick gratitude in moving forward? So I would rather hear what's something you can add versus what are you already doing? But if you have an already doing, that's fine too, because then we can all learn from it. But do share, where can you start creating habits around gratitude? And while you do that, I'm going to answer some of these questions. Okay, so answer the question on the slide. I'm going to read this other question out and answer it. How do you walk the line between giving regular gratitude and reinforcement without it becoming commonplace that it creates diminishing returns? In a past role, my leadership didn't give acknowledgments or gratitude regularly, but that also made it so that when they did, it felt important, impactful, and genuine. Do the characteristics of scarcity apply to gratitude where overabundance of supply lowers its value? That's a great question. I'm going to say this. I don't have an actual answer where I could say like, well, research says this, or research says there's diminishing returns on gratitude. I definitely agree with you that if someone just says thank you all day, every day, then you stop believing it. So yes, everything in moderation, and it's okay to say thank you every day. So why not, as you walk out the door at the end of the day, say thank you to the people around you, or as you get off of a phone call, say thank you for your time today. So Yes and no. That's my answer. I had a boss once that he liked cars and had some nice cars. And so he had a car detailer come to the office about once a week. And, he would pop in your office sometimes and say, hey, line your car up and I'll have him wash it for you. And that was his way of kind of what you're saying, where it's like, you didn't know when you were going to get it. You didn't always get it. And he sort of rotated around. But I think that's a good example of what you're saying. How do you call out the leader who preaches recognition but does not practice what they preach? That's a great question. And what I would do is, depending on your relationship with that leader, have a bit of a coaching conversation with them. Is it possible that you could meet with that leader and say, you talk a lot about recognition, but as an observer, I can tell you that I'm not necessarily seeing it. And I'm just curious about your thoughts on that. So just like you might approach coaching an employee, can you talk to them about it in a way that doesn't affect them, or doesn't not affect them, but doesn't insult them? That's my answer. Okay, let's see. We got a lot of good answers. Reference specific situations. Exactly. Don't just say thank you in general. Last year we did a snowball fight where we had our team write something that they appreciate or noticed about a team member and stuck it in on the desk. And then if you were tagged, it was your turn to throw a snowball. I love that. That makes it fun. Snowball fight. Like, I almost feel like snowball fight, crinkle up pieces of paper with notes on them and throw them at each other. Not hard. That would be workplace violence. I was referenced, let's see, be intentional, should be challenging to be kind and show gratitude. Love that. Leave a sticky note on the staff's computer. Yes. Thank you when they do something to help you out. I'm thinking of another story. This was Rebecca, who with the glasses on that last slide. When she first started with me, I like to cuss. I won't cuss now, but I do cuss sometimes. And I had these thank you cards that said, you're doing an effing amazing job. And it was all in like nice cursive, but it was this, and I remember leaving it on her desk. And I remember watching her come in and look at it and read it. And she just sort of picked it up and kind of held it like up to her chest and put it down. And just really a good reminder of how far praise and showing someone you value them goes. Begin in emails. All right. So you have a lot of great tips in here to share. So you should all have a nice long list of gratitude activities after this webinar. Thanking people for the ordinary. Yeah. Thanks for doing something expected. I like that too. A lot of times we're thanking people for going above and beyond, but also thank you for just doing your job and being reliable and helping me sleep at night, knowing that it's getting done. Is also really great. Cheers for peers. Send each other a shout out. Love it. Okay. So one thing you might do, if we're going to talk about culture, you should assess your culture. And so some of the things to think about related to recognition when you're doing your surveys are some of the statements here. Our survey measures these 5 areas. So here are some examples of statements we're asking employees to rate within each of those 5. And so definitely a good action item for you, along with creating your list of gratitude activities for your workforce, is to take a peek at your survey and just make sure there's questions in there about whether or not people feel they are valued, that they have the opportunity to tell others they're valued, and just picking through that is a good action item for you. So you probably know on the flip side that SHRM is focused on civility right now, and nearly 40% of daily acts of incivility occur in the workplace. We spend a lot of time there. So let's do a little training scenario here. Carl was publicly belittled in a team meeting. A few people look down at their notes, others stay silent, unsure of what to do. Then Isabel speaks up. She says calmly, hey, I don't think that comment was fair. Carl's work has added a lot of value to this project. The room went quiet. The meeting moved on, but the atmosphere shifted. So, how did Carl feel when Isabel stepped up? How might that silence affected him? And what might Isabel's courage have signaled to the rest of the team? This isn't a training, this is a webinar, so we don't have to have a too crazy of a conversation here. But this is a great example of how you can infiltrate gratitude into your organization beyond the activities that we just talked about. Having regular conversations with your workforce about these kinds of more sort of subtle scenarios that are very impactful scenarios is going to be super helpful for you to continue to move towards this culture of gratitude that you're wanting to create. So I definitely recommend that you take a picture of this slide and think of some other types of scenarios that are relevant to your workforce and have conversations about them. Gosh, what if you never get a thank you for doing your job, even during the death of your parents? Gosh, that's a big question. And I would say that organization clearly does not value you. And I might find another place to work. That would be my answer. So I'm curious about this scenario. Do you all feel like this is the type of thing that you would be willing to bring to your organization and get your people to start talking about, you know, gratitude and respect and these kind of subtle but high impact moments? What do you think, Kayla?
I'm still stuck on Janine's comment
Yeah.
there. Okay, a lot of people are saying yes, absolutely.
Good. Yep. So I always say, you know, a lot of times organizations really create these big culture initiatives, which you should do. You've got to be strategic about your culture and have plans in place. But also, and perhaps more importantly, are these little moments in time, because this scenario on your screen, that's culture. That is organizational culture right there. It's not the rewards and recognition program that drives culture. It's this. Culture exists in our everyday interactions. And so that's the important place to focus.
I will add too, I think this kind of goes along with like that sort of like that bystander sort of, you know, we've had trainings on that, or being a bystander, but I think when somebody takes up for you, it's not only is that like very nice to have that sort of relationship in your workplace, but just knowing, okay, like I see you, and you know, if the folks that were silent or of unsure what to do, you know, what if you were in that position, or the other person was in that position, and it's like, would you say anything? And again, it's that bystander training, like speak up if you feel like someone is being unappreciated or looked over. Try to put yourself in their shoes. Would you like someone to speak up for you? And I would say absolutely.
Yeah. And Angela makes a good comment. Feels like it's the right thing to do, but others may see it as not okay and should do it in private. And Angela, your comment is exactly why you should be bringing scenarios like this to your workforce, because they can then talk that very thing out. And someone in your group, when you're looking at a slide like this, will say that. And then people start to create norms around, well, I would want someone to speak up. Well, I would rather not. Is this what, you know, what? And so those conversations start to create norms and permission to address these types of things. So you're all the more reason to have these conversations, because your organization's culture dictates how this scenario plays out. And so let's not just let it play out. Let's talk about it and come to some sort of informal agreements about how we might solve things like this. So gratitude is a super important way to offset toxicity, right? Because when there's toxicity, the targets of that toxicity feel unhappy and discouraged and not valued, and they're lacking morale and they're lacking loyalty. But when you bring them back with the gratitude, then it's creating safety and belonging. And the person who engaged in the upstander behavior, as Kayla mentioned, can feel some gratitude and some serotonin and some dopamine for being an upstander. And the team can witness that, hey, this person's an ally, this person's a trusted place for, protecting the culture. And so kind of back to this idea of doing it in public or not, I would say certainly there's a time and a place. Doing things publicly, like saying, hey, that wasn't a funny comment, or, kind of getting in there and reminding people, hey, that wasn't okay. I really think doing that in public is important because it does indicate I will not tolerate behavior like that. And so it sends a public message with, and I'm not saying shame people, hey, don't say stuff like that, but to speak up in some way, shape, or form in the moment, this moves the culture in the right direction. And it shows people I'm an ally, I'm a safe space. And Chantel's got some good comments. People don't speak up sometimes because they don't want to go against management, or they don't feel comfortable. They don't feel like it's a norm. And that's the whole point, is we have to change the norm, right? We have to adjust what we've been doing. So if you would like a worksheet from us, go ahead and scan that QR code. It will automatically populate an email for you, and then you can just hit send, and it'll go straight to Jenny, and Jenny will send you this and a few other things that we're offering. So scan the QR code. It should take you to an email, or you can just email info@civilitypartners.com. And so this is a great little handout that we have for you to help start working as an organization on creating rewards for your workforce. Okay, so we talked about the O in our oil model. Let's talk about the I, individual behavior. So that's all of us in our individual selves. So this is one of my quotes from my book. It's up to every individual to step up and protect each other and the company culture you work in. And it's up to the organization to empower and teach people how. So as organizational representatives here from HR, I'm assuming most of you, you have to facilitate the ability for people to engage in the behavior that you're asking them to behave in. You have to make it easier on them to engage in that behavior, right? So again, expressing gratitude is super important to our well-being. If you're going to facilitate individual behavior and get people to behave in the ways that you want them to, certainly that means you have to give them some training on all sorts of things, not just on gratitude, but on creating a positive, thriving, respectful work environment, being an upstander, navigating difficult conversations, gratitude, being respectful. The second part of training is that you also have to give managers training. So what I love about our trainings anyways is that we try to do a training that's like the interpersonal skills that we need to facilitate. So in this case, you hire us to do a gratitude training. We're going to give every level, every person, every individual the interpersonal skills to be grateful and show gratitude. Then part 2 of that is training managers so that managers have that second level of ability to manage a culture of gratitude, create a team environment that is positive and respectful and full of gratitude, and address behaviors that go against that positive, respectful work environment you're wanting to create. And so interpersonal skills for everybody at all levels. And then managers need a part 2 on proactively leading that individual behavior you're looking for. Matthew says, if Carl's a good leader, he'll take that feedback in stride. I agree with you. So, of course, as individuals, we have to be thinking about, our own reactions to things and people around us. So one thing that we often do is we all assume negative intent most of the time. And that's a bias. It's called the negativity bias. We assume negative intent as a survival instinct, just like all of our biases. There's some sort of element of surviving in the wild from our biases. So we have to be very intentional about recognizing that positive intent is usually where people are coming from, not negative intent. Asking open-ended questions, getting to know people so that we can understand what drives them, what they want to feel valued for. I like to feel valued for things that are different than perhaps what you want to feel valued for. So getting to know people, teaching managers not to let tension grow. Managers can get more involved more quickly. In fact, I've got a great story for you. Just yesterday, we were finalizing a report for a client. I'm going to talk to that client later today. Here's what happened. Day one, 9 years ago, a new employee walks into the office. And according to her, she's kind of like, she likes her Louis Vuitton. She had her key fob and her coffee and her Pellegrino, and she likes fashion. And she walks into the office, her first day of employment, and another employee says to her something along the lines of, "Oh, look at you, fancy." Conflict ever since. 9 years later, the conflict's still going strong. They've got a lot of problems with each other, these two individuals. And so we interviewed both of them, and then we've interviewed the periphery who work with these two individuals in conflict, as well as both of their managers. They're in different departments. And really what it boils down to is if the managers had the wherewithal to step in a long time ago and kind of smooth out that initial interaction, we would not be here. And now they've spent a bunch of money. This client has spent a bunch of money on us, helping them understand the problem. And now they're going to spend a bunch of money solving this problem. And when all it took is for one of those two managers to step in and say, "Hey, I notice you all aren't getting along. Can we solve this?" And so a great example of how tension can just grow and grow and really impact a lot of people. So some other great tips, knowing when to escalate a conflict to HR, or when it's just more about, let me step in and help you solve this. And then recognizing, giving gratitude that a problem has been solved. And then that third bullet point from the bottom, replacing but with and, is always an interesting exercise. Something else you could do for yourself as an individual or encourage your team to do is to create a gratitude journal. There's actually a ton of research on this. There is not a lot in science that is reliable and valid every single time. This is one of those components of research that really does show up every time. Over and over and over again, researchers have asked people to take what's called the life satisfaction scale survey. And then they've asked them to do a gratitude journal. So write down 3 things every single day for 3 months or 6 months. And then they redo that life satisfaction survey. And 100% of the time, people's scores go up. It creates more satisfaction with life. And so this is simple and a really great way to increase your own life satisfaction and create more happiness for yourself. I might encourage you and all your team, you could do it together. You could say, "Hey, let's start this challenge. At the end of every day, we're going to all take 5 minutes to write something in our journal." Or maybe at the beginning of a team meeting, "Hey, let's start this meeting off by all just kind of writing in our journal." You don't have to share, but doing this as a group exercise would be pretty cool. And then also appreciating yourself, of course, recognizing your own past achievements. I had a coach who talked to me about keeping a file folder of the emails where people said thank you, or the awards that I've won, or the pictures of things that I've done that are cool, so that whenever you're feeling down, you could just open up the file folder and kind of flip through it and remind yourself that you're pretty awesome. Let's see. Dealing with the same issues at my organization. Both don't care for each other. One's disrespectful and the other maintains professionalism, yet the behavior isn't accepted from direct reports. Leaders lead by example. That's right. Okay, good deal. So I've got another handout for you. Again, if you do this QR code, it will just take you to the email and Jenny will know what you're looking for. This is another example of an exercise that you can do with your teams. It's called the best self exercise. The short summary of it is that you send an email to your team with a list of everybody's names. You ask everybody on the team to respond, naming one thing they're thankful for each person in the list. You collect the list, and then you have a list of everything everybody said about Kayla, and you can read it to Kayla in your staff meeting. And then you have a list of everything that everybody said about Jenny, and you can read it to Jenny in the staff meeting. So it's a way to collect things that everyone is thankful for in each other. And then you kind of, again, another little kind of love fest with the with the impact lunch kind of a thing. And when challenges arise with people, it's easy to get mad and assume negative intent, but instead asking yourself, what can I learn? Who helped me through it? What's working? That's a way to really give yourself some grace. Okay, so lastly is the leadership team behavior. So we've talked about the O and the I in our oil model of culture. Now we got to talk about leadership team behavior. So when's the last time you thanked someone for disagreeing with you? My leaders here on this webinar. And while you're answering that, I'm going to look at some of these other questions. So when's the last time you thanked someone for disagreeing with you? Someone's asked me, are our trainings in Spanish? Yes, they are. We have some trainers and facilitators who speak Spanish, and we can take any of the topics that aren't already in Spanish and make them Spanish and deliver them in Spanish. So do please reach out to us at info@CivilityPartners and we will make that happen. Let's see, how do you improve inclusion, engagement, and culture for a team that has over half of the team in the field on different job sites and 30% are in the office? That's a great question. And it means you have to be more intentional, right? So I think your first step in solving that problem is to, you have to think about them as in different places, obviously, logically, but also try to remove that barrier when you're thinking about your culture. So what is it that the team in the field needs that's different than what the people in the office need? And so if you have a clear plan of what the culture is that you're trying to create, there's going to be a lot of things that you can do for both those groups, but there's a lot of things that they're going to need that are different. So for example, if you were to tell all of your managers, hey, I suggest that you start having a little gratitude fest at the beginning of your team meetings, people in the office and people out on the job sites can do that. You could also incorporate, online video. So while people are out in the field in their car, parked, of course, could you have a team meeting that's focused on gratitude, even though some people are in the office and some people aren't. And so I think you just have to be more intentional about how to create culture with these various groups, but you can still make a very clear statement on the kind of culture you want and give your managers resources to do that. Okay, let's see what hopefully that helped. Let's see. I had a friend that would disagree with me all the time and was very helpful to our mutual growth. She died recently and I'll miss her. I'm a better person because she understood that disagreement is not the same as disrespect or dislike. That's a great comment. Someone says, I don't think I've ever done this. Something to think about. Roseanne says earlier this week because they made me think. Yeah, so this is kind of an interesting exercise. When someone disagrees with you, maybe in the moment, it can be hard to be thankful for that. But people who disagree with us give us, they're there for a reason. They give us new ways to think about things. Okay, so managers drive 70% of the variance in team engagement, and they make or break your employee experience. So again, teaching leaders and managers to find new ways to do things. So for example, when we're having feedback conversations, instead of saying just there's something wrong with this, right? Try, you've been really thorough. If we can tighten this part, it'll shine even more. I notice you interrupt people in meetings and it can have the impact of shutting people down. That's a great tip for if we're doing an assertiveness training. But in the tech context of gratitude, maybe saying something like, I really value that you're so engaged. It's really great. But also, we need to make sure everybody else has the opportunity. So I feel like some of you might argue with this and say, well, if you're going to give someone feedback, don't, lessen the impact by saying something you're thankful for. So again, everybody has their own ideas about how to do these types of things. So this is a suggestion, is that instead of kind of like, here's a problem with your behavior that we need to correct, it could be more around thank you for being so engaged, or thank you for being that or doing that. And here's a change we need to make. Let's see. I'm not thanking someone for disagreeing with me, but I did thank them for pointing out some negatively perceived things I said in a meeting. And that's awesome that somebody felt comfortable to do that for you. What about a gratitude secret Santa? Instead of getting gifts, you could observe that person and share all the positive things you noticed about them. I love that. It's another great activity for all of you. I like it. Something that I have come to believe is very important in creating a respectful work environment is modeling vulnerability. And I think one of the outcomes of COVID was that people did get quite a bit more vulnerable than we ever had been before, because we were all really stressed out. So let's not lose that vulnerability. So it's okay to show that you're a human. It's okay to say you don't know something. It's okay to, push back in a polite way to a superior or a boss. So I do think that vulnerability is super important, because vulnerability is a huge component of being human. So if we're going to bring human to human resources and treat our workforce as humans, then we have to make sure that they feel okay being vulnerable, and that our managers are okay being vulnerable. And it's a lot easier to say thank you to somebody coming from a place of vulnerability, because you have to be vulnerable to really acknowledge where they're at, right? Or what they did for you, or what you're thankful for. That requires vulnerability. So bringing vulnerability into your working world is an important component. Thanks, Jennifer. And then again, we talked about what we do in public and private and all of that earlier with the Carl example. And so again, publicly thanking people is really great. It shouldn't flow in one direction. I really do encourage you to take a look at your performance review process and make sure that employees also have the opportunity to talk about what their managers are doing well and not so well, just like managers have the opportunity to share what their employees are doing well and not so well. That should flow both ways. So ultimately, we're talking about a feedback culture, right? And, just some kind of final thoughts here, and then we can answer some other questions, is that recognition is resistance to the toxic work cycle. If you focus on what you want rather than what you don't want, that's going to go a long way. So really teaching your managers to proactively build gratitude into daily activities is going to be super key. And so again, we've got some resources for you. The third one is, are you a workplace bully? So you're not going to be vulnerable if you're a workplace bully. So we threw that one in there. So use the QR code. It'll bring you to an email. Then you can just hit send and Jenny will respond. Thank you, Jenny. I'm going to give gratitude to Jenny. She creates my slides for me and always does an amazing job.
I
So
second
thank you.
that. Jenny is awesome. Thanks, Jenny, for all you do.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, Kayla and Jenny are best friends. Okay, so we have time for some additional questions. If anybody has any, I'm happy to answer them for you.
Did you see the question from Lucy?
No, where is it? What was the question?
How to ensure these are not interpreted differently? It could be seen as sugarcoating a criticism.
Well, I think it's a personality thing, right? If somebody is pretty sarcastic all the time and doesn't really ever say thank you or isn't vulnerable, then yeah, people are going to see that person's attempt at vulnerability as being sarcastic or sugarcoating. So a big part of it is a person's personality, and we all have to find our own right ways to um, be vulnerable, give feedback, give gratitude. There's obviously a difference between thanks and thank you so much, right? So, and that could be a training that you do. Maybe you need to deliver a training or do some of these exercises like we saw with Carl, where you give people the opportunity to really talk it out and create some norms around how to behave in certain situations. That is a big component of creating your culture. Thanks, Sandra. Hopefully you got some good tips. Everybody, snowball fight. I can't wait to hear how those go. Kayla, throwing a crumpled up paper with a compliment on it your way.
Oh yeah, I would love that. I'll try to catch it. Just don't throw it too hard, but that sounds lovely. But Catherine, how do people get a hold of you? What kind of services do you provide?
Oh, thank you. Well, here are some links. And Civility Partners does workforce training, so we can do any of these trainings. We do surveys. We help you create some clear action plans around culture, and we deliver coaching. So if you have any other questions about anything, certainly happy to help. Reach out, info@civilitypartners.com, and we'll can talk through what your needs are. And I hope everyone has a wonderful Thanksgiving, and go and be thankful.
Yes. Go be grateful. And once again, I am so grateful for Catherine and Jenny. I love our partnership. I mean, it's been, I don't know how many years now, but it's always a pleasure chatting with you beforehand, and just always learning something from you. I think that's like one of my favorite things about our relationship, is that I'm always learning from you. And just you're here to make people better. And I've certainly gained some wonderful tips along the way of how I can be a better person. So, and that's professionally, personally, all of the above. So once again, thank you, Catherine and Jenny, and thank you all for attending these sessions. We love hearing from you. And you all have so much information to share. And I love the attendee chat and how you all talk to each other and give suggestions. It's just a wonderful and beautiful display. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. And thank you too, Kayla. I really appreciate our partnership as well. I'm so glad to know you, and I learn a lot from you in our conversations too. So thank you all, and go have a great rest of your year.
Yeah, we'll see you all at the next webinar. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.